Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we are breaking down a massive paradigm shift in how we think about, well, getting things done. If you've ever felt like you're literally just waiting around for the right mood to strike before you finally tackle a big project, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to unpack exactly why waiting for motivation is a complete trap and how you can transform your entire approach to actually achieve your goals sustainably. Because look, we've all been there, right? You set a big goal, but when it's actually time to sit down and do the work, you just feel tired or lazy or just completely paralyzed. So what do? You look for a spark. You try to force yourself to feel motivated. But why does this relentless pursuit of motivation eventually leave us feeling so burned out and defeated? That is the exact problem we're solving today. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap to fix the burnout. First, we'll look at the flaw of motivation. Second, becoming motivation enhanced. Third, distinguish and fake. And fourth, uptime and zone focus. You're going to know exactly how to apply all of this by the end. All right, part one, the flaw of motivation and why just wanting it isn't enough. It's time to shatter this illusion that highly successful people, the ones working 60+ hours a week, juggling intensive studies and businesses, are just these endlessly motivated, hyped up machines. Actually, scratch that. They aren't machines at all. They often feel just as tired and lazy as the rest of us. So what's actually going wrong when we try to reach our own goals? Well, here's the standard motivation trap. Step one, you have the intention. You genuinely want to go for a run or study for that huge exam. But right before you actually do it, step two hits, the barriers. Procrastination, your phone buzzing, or just sheer tiredness. Suddenly, your brain tells you that to cross this gap, you need step three, which is motivation. You're relying on motivation as the fuel to push through the barrier. And if you don't feel it, the task simply doesn't happen. It just doesn't. And this right here makes you what we call motivation dependent. Now, what's really interesting is how we break down where that motivation actually comes from in the first place. First, you've got extrinsic motivation. Think money, rewards, social status. These fluctuate wildly because, let's face it, they're mostly out of your control. Then you have intrinsic motivation, your core values, your deep sense of purpose. We are constantly told intrinsic is better, right? But here is the absolute kicker. Even intrinsic motivation fluctuates. Seriously, it changes based on how much sleep you got last night, your physical health, or just your random daily mood. And that constant fluctuation, that leads us directly to willpower depletion. Think about it. If your ability to get things done depends purely on how you feel, then the only way to be consistently productive is to feel consistently great. And that is biologically impossible. No way around it. If you constantly use motivation and sheer willpower to fight through your daily barriers, you are eventually going to run dry. Researchers point to this exact depletion as the core engine of the burnout cycle. You push and push until there is literally nothing left in the tank. Which brings us to section 2, becoming motivation enhanced, a completely new paradigm. If being motivation dependent leads straight to burnout, we need a totally different approach. We need a fundamental philosophical shift in how our brains operate on a daily basis. So let's look at the massive contrast between these two mindsets. Being motivation dependent means your actions absolutely rely on feeling great. On the flip side, being motivation enhanced means the action happens anyway. You can still feel motivated sometimes, sure, but you don't need to be. You don't have to wake up full of hype every single day. You keep that precious motivation in reserve for the days you genuinely need it for a massive hurdle, not just for getting through your baseline daily tasks. So how do we actually get there? To become motivation enhanced, we use a concept straight from clinical psychology called thought-action diffusion. And guys, this is essentially a cognitive superpower. Normally, our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions are all tangled up together in a messy knot. Thought-action diffusion is the ability to actively separate what we physically feel from the actions we choose to take. And the absolute best part? Virtually anyone can learn to do it using a really simple 4-step framework called defuse. Let's get right into it with section 3, distinguish and fake, the D and the F of defuse. These represent the immediate, right-in-the-moment actions you take when you feel that heavy wave of laziness hit you. Let's see how this builds using a highly relatable example, hunger. Normally, it goes something like this. Step 1, you have a physical feeling in your stomach. Step 2, you have the thought, I must eat right now. And step 3, the action, you eat. They are completely fused together. But to distinguish, the D in defuse, means you simply notice the feeling. You just say, okay, I feel a sensation in my stomach. You acknowledge it without letting it instantly trigger the thought that you must act on it immediately. You kind of just let the feeling exist on its own.
And you can apply this distinction to almost anything. Take anxiety, for example. The source material shares this incredible anecdote about a speaker preparing for a high-stakes TEDx talk. The speaker felt clammy hands, a racing heart, a literal adrenaline response. Now, if you fuse with that feeling, your automatic thought is, I am anxious, and you spiral into a panic. But if you distinguish it, you can totally reframe the thought. You can say, my body is giving me an adrenaline response right now because I'm incredibly excited to crush this presentation. By separating the physical feeling from the automatic thought, you take back control. It's a real game changer.
And that brings us perfectly to the F in DUFUs, which stands for fake. As one powerlifting coach bluntly but hilariously put it, just train tired. If you feel lazy, you don't actually have to change the feeling. You just fake the action. Think about a highly paid actor on a movie set. They might be running on zero sleep, but when the director yells action, they pretend to be energetic. You can do the exact same thing. You can feel completely exhausted and still sit at your desk and just pretend to be someone who is studying or working. You are faking the action while letting the tired feeling remain.
Now, this leads us to an absolutely crucial psychological concept, the bidirectional loop. We usually think feelings cause thoughts, which then cause actions, but it goes the other way too. When you use the fake step and just start doing the actions of a productive person, your mind actually observes you working. Your brain goes, I guess we aren't that lazy right now. This literally tricks your brain into feeling less tired, and suddenly, you actually feel more motivated. The action creates the feeling. How wild is that?
Moving right along to section 4, uptime and zone focus, adapting to the modern world. So, now that you know how to diffuse your feelings in the moment, how do you make this a lasting habit? Because let's be real, relying on faking it forever sounds completely exhausting, right? Let's dive into the final 2 steps of the framework. The U stands for uptime. At first, your brain will probably only let you maintain this diffused, faking it state for a really short period, maybe just 10 minutes of studying before the laziness creeps back in. And you know what? That is completely fine. Tomorrow, you try for 12 minutes, then 20, then 30. Through neuroplasticity, as you continuously expose your brain to this new pattern of acting independently of your feelings, your brain physically adapts. You're literally building mental endurance. Now, some people worry this sounds a bit like training yourself to be a mindless robot. But think about the caveman analogy for a second. Back when we were living in caves and foraging for berries, we definitely didn't return to the campfire to study for a university exam under fluorescent lights. Modern goals are biologically unnatural. We are living with highly artificial demands. So it makes total sense that we need a deliberate psychological framework to help us navigate all of it while staying healthy.
And finally, the Z stands for zone. To reduce the need for motivation, you have to create a zone of focus. The best tool here is a distraction cheat sheet. Keep a notepad nearby. Every single time you lose focus, write down exactly what triggered it. Was it a specific app icon? Was it the game controller sitting on your desk? Once you identify these specific triggers, ruthlessly eliminate them. Toss the controller in a drawer, use app blockers, set up your workspace the night before. You're basically building an environment where distractions simply cannot touch you. By combining distinguish, fake, uptime, and zone, you unlock the complete defuse method. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Are you ready to stop endlessly searching for that magical burst of motivational content and start taking action today? Stop waiting to feel perfect. You now have the exact blueprint to separate your feelings from your actions, keep your motivation in reserve, and become truly unstoppable. Put this into practice the very next time you feel lazy, and just watch what happens. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.